Hello everyone. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. As promised on my video in Belajar.net, and also maybe I have promised way before in the first episodes of Belajar.net and also a later episode of Dotnet Weekly that I'm going to bring you some news and updates. I know that it took me some times to really trying to get to know the format and how do I do. I mean, how am I going to deliver this kind of videos? But now I'll try. So without further ado, this is the first episode of VisualStudio.net and its ecosystem, meaning that its tooling and the news around it, the news that happens around the .net itself and also around the Visual Studio. I'm not going to limit myself to just .NET. As long as it is Visual Studio, then you will see that I will also try to bring updates on Azure DevOps, WPF, MAUI, and so on. But also on maybe on GitHub. I know that the image it's a little bit cramped. What I'm trying to display here is I know it's a little bit silly of me, but you can have updates on Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, .NET, NuGet, and Azure DevOps, Unix Personalization Foundation. Let me know if you can guess what are the other icons represents of what kind of products or features. So let's start. This is Visual Studio.NET and its ecosystem news and updates. We are going to discuss Visual Studio 2022 17.14 Preview 4, .NET 10 Preview 3, .NET Aspire 9.2, and some spicy drama on the .NET open source projects. Not the .NET itself, but the open source projects that is based on .NET. I'll give you some more context after this. But first, let's discuss the what's new in the Visual Studio 2022 17.14 Preview 4. So we now see the Visual Studio 2022 preview. Preview means that it doesn't always full preview. I mean, we already have Visual Studio 2022, which is now the release version is 17.13, and the next number is the patching. They usually mention about the major minor, but also they should also mention the patching numbers. So the release version is currently 17.13 and the current patch, the latest one is 17.13.6. You may see that I mentioned about 17.13.1 on the latest videos of Belajar.net, and I use at least 17.13.1, not just it has the latest update, but I I want to encourage you to use at least .NET SDK 9.0.101 or 102 and or 2.0.0, but at least 17.13.1. Why? Because that version is the one that is going to have the vulnerability updates, and if you can also have the 17.13.2, that will be great because you will have .NET SDK. But the problem is not just there, I'm afraid. So we have to know what would be the version that has the updates for that kind of fixes. So let's try to open a new one. Hopefully I could connect to dot.net/core. Previously I got some block request or whatever. Now I can open. So let's see the download.net SDK. I already mentioned many times before, the .NET SDK is not the same as the .NET runtime version. Why? Because the SDK is the one that you use to develop any apps on top of .NET. Runtime is the one you use to ensure that your application have runtime host to run. So that any kinds of .NET application, you need .NET runtime. You don't have to install .NET SDK, but at least you need to have .NET runtime. Okay, so if you look at the all .NET 9 downloads, you'll see that we have here 901 and the SDK is 90102. So hang on, let's okay. This one or it doesn't have the update that I mentioned. I think it's 902 if I'm not mistaken. Yep, it it is available in installation of Visual Studio 17.13.0, the first version, and also it has the SDK version is 90200. But I think I mentioned about 17.13.0. Why? As I mentioned before, 17.13.0 is not enough. On 17.13.1, you'll see that you have these fixes. So latest Visual Studio Preview is very slow loading IntelliSense on last solution. I already had this problem before. And also you will have this error about specified. I know that I'm not using any kinds of, or I'm not developing any apps on iOS, but some of my friends are using it, and this is quite a big problem for them. You will see that this version 17.13.3 is also very important because you have some CVE or I forgot the C vulnerability. This is the vulnerability, and it says that Visual Studio elevation of privilege vulnerability, .NET elevation of privilege vulnerability, and Visual Studio installer elevation of privilege vulnerability. So you have the fixes for these three CVEs. And also there is some fixes on .NET side. So Belajar project breaks IntelliSense in 17.12.2 and it is fixed at 17.20.3, meaning that there is a possibility that you will have fixes for this on 17.13.3 and you will not have fixes for 17.12.2 release. So in other words, I encourage you to use at least 17.13.2 for now. I know that I should mention 17.30.2, but to me, this kind of problem, especially if things are hang during VS shutdown when setup, oh no, not this one, on large solution is rarely happen. I have a solution, and that solution have about 80 projects. That is a problem. So unless you don't have that kind of problem, even if you have more than 20 or let's say 30, it is still doable. And as far as I know, I still don't have any problem. So maybe I should start to make a note that for the next video of Belajar.net, you need to have at least 17.13.3 in order to have the best version of Visual Studio 2022. It doesn't have to be the latest one, but at least you have protected from this vulnerability because it has this physics. And that's the release version. And the preview one, which is something that I'm going to show you. Not this one. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to open the preview release notes here. So we are now entering preview 4. These are the top bug fixes on preview 4. Unfortunately, they don't really describe the new feature that is coming on preview 4. All of the features are in this, all features. But I don't know where there should be any mention. Let me see. Okay, it doesn't have any mention at all. So full list, explicit assembly. Okay, let's see. Please read our blog post. Okay, what is the? Oh, yeah. Visual Studio 17.14 Preview 3 introduces new feature that enhance Windows Forms auto process. Auto process means that we all know that Visual Studio 2022, sorry, is 64-bit version. there is no 32-bit version of Visual Studio 2022. If somebody told you about that, that man or woman doesn't understand at all. So Visual Studio 2022 is 64-bit. When you view the designer of WinForms, even for the WinForms designer for .NET Framework, you are having that designer out of process because the current designer of .NET Framework, it is using .NET Framework 32-bit, not using the 64-bit. And that also create another problem because it's not quite easy if you host a designer 32-bit inside a full 64-bit environment. This blog post will describe all the problems and why it matters. So you can read it on your own, and it is in the 17.14 preview 3. There is a, if I'm not mistaken, a specific video for describing all of the features in 17.14 preview 3. So let me see if I open YouTube. Looks like I need to search. Oh, no. This is only, yeah, for Visual Studio. And this is the one that I'm going to describe. But first, let's look for, I'm going to keep this YouTube channel open, opening a new tab. And let's see. Not this one. There's a party release party, something. Visual Studio extensibility. Yeah, we have a SLNX in the 17.13, I believe. Directly 17.14. Could not find it. Something like this. There you are. Okay, this is on the Microsoft Visual Studio channel, but it's very hard to find. Okay, yeah. So for further, not really further, for more details maybe, but it doesn't really mention about the CVE. I already seen this video. You can see because some of the newer features it is described in this video in more thorough, but I think you already can read on this page. So this one. My main points on preview 4 is not just bug fixes, but this preview 4, I think it is not yet, bringing the .NET SDK to be integrated directly. So I'll show you what I'm trying to say. Okay, let me open the download page for .NET 10. So let's go to this one, and you see we now have .NET 10 preview 3, and there is no Visual Studio installation yet. But as far as I know, this Visual Studio preview 3 and not preview 3, preview 4 is the best Visual Studio preview that I know that you can start to try to develop on top of .NET 10. And also you will see that some of the bug fixes are important, such as Microsoft.coverage.console takes a long time to instrument to other in BDLL. If you ask me, is this possible? Yes, because there is no limit of how large your DLL will be, especially if you try to make it as a single file. somebody on the .NET community has created a single file that can, pack all of those into one. If you really manage your uh, quote unquote monorepos, you'll see that you can have a compilation more than 80 MB. I've already done that before, and some problems are starting to appear. If you try to separate those projects on a separate solution, it really doesn't solve any problem immediately, because you need to know what parts of the functionality, what part of the library that you really need, and you have to wire up those to ensure that the integration goes well. So sometimes you have to have that kind of situation or condition. Sometimes you don't have to. It depends on what you actually need. And this fix an issue to prevent reordering of AVX instruction. To me, it can be seen as important if your code is more like a SSE2 sensitive, especially if you are dealing with the operations on some scenarios such as calculating factors, for example. Factors in .NET is usually closely related to AVX instructions. So I have discussed the preview 4 of 2022. The next one is the .NET 10. .NET 10 preview 3. So .NET 10 preview 3, we'll see here. Okay, let me check this one. Yeah, we have a .NET 10 preview 3 web. Yep. Release notes. So this is the release notes. Unfortunately, it is in the form of GitHub Markdown, but I think it is still readable. So we have here under .NET/core, meaning that all of the umbrellas and features inside .NET will be announced in this repo. So we have here .NET preview 3 binaries, and these are the download is not much interesting. But what I'm trying to see, is there any kinds of this is to okay, let's try to look at the blog post we have here. Is quite a list, but it is not all of them. Maybe some of them is important, some of them are not. But there is a notable, or there are not notable features. For example, in C# in .NET 10, in this preview 3, you have extension members, meaning that you can have extensions not just on method but also on properties and many things. There is a no conditional assignment, and the whole full release notes you can see here. If you open this, you'll see that extension members, not just method but also something extension block. Today you may have so you put this on the first parameter, and the static method will be extension method. Property declaration do not have a similar occasion to declare this. Thus, C# 14 includes extension blocks. Where blocks a scope that is posted to as content member. Okay, we have here extension source. But honestly, I haven't tried this yet. This is quite new, and I have a bad experience when I try to use this on a version preview before preview 4. And this is why I mentioned this is important, because .NET 10 preview 3, you can open some project inside the .NET, inside the Visual Studio 2022 preview 4. The experience is smoother instead of you open this on Visual Studio 2022 17.14 preview 3 or before. Okay, the next one is the open source drama in the .NET world. You'll see that some of the open source project is starting to be commercialized. It is okay if you really want to commercialize your open source, but there are uh, three big problems if you really want to do that. One, if your open source project is very popular enough, but actually you can have or implement your own very easily, and that open source project is starting to, or really wanting to change into commercialize, you have to be careful on that one. There is a sample of fluent assessment, for example. So let me look. So fluent assessment is being powered, really powered, really acquired by Exceed. But the owner of this project, the fluent assessment owner of open source project, didn't really communicate that well. Suddenly there is a PR, and then that PR is changing the fluent assessment license model directly, and everyone is shocked. Fluent assessment is basically how are you going to do unit tests in a fluent interface way or fluent flow way, but you can also create your own actually. And then everyone is starting to look for the alternatives. You see, if I start to look, there is a fluent assessment alternative. I'm not training this search engine, but this search engine is showing the keywords that are used often when you are looking for information about fluent assertions. This means that there is a or there are lots of news discussing the alternative of fluent assertion. The second big factor is if you really want to change your model from totally free to commercial, you have to know that you need to give enough good explanation on why 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 you decided to go to that route. I know that there is a some kind of maybe irony on open source because open source is nice, especially when you are doing open source or when you are creating that open source repo to solve some specific problems, and then everybody will come to your open source repo, give some issue report, give bug report, fix will be some kind of way to submit a PR, for example. But that kind of activity, that person that does the or create the open source initially may not have some time to really listen to all of the bug reports and issues and so on, because he still have some time to assess is this really a bug or not, if the suggestions are okay or are making sense or not. He or she sometimes has to review PRs related to that, and the problems will increase exponentially if the project was going more popular, and then more issues are coming, more feature requests are coming, and trust me, the one that does many complain or those that are requesting more features are those are usually don't want to pay the original open source repo creator because they really want to use it for free. It's like I don't want to pay a dime or whatever just to use that. But then they started to talk like expert, like okay, you should not do that because this kind of blah 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 blah. But they should respect the decision, especially if the open source owner or the original creator already mentioned that he or she cannot really maintain anymore, especially we know that most of the fact is the maintainer is one person, mostly one person. That also happen on the you'll see that mediator automapper, like this one for example. I know that many of you have used automapper and also mediator. These two are going commercial. The irony is about these two. The creator Jimmy Bogart previously mentioned that he will not commercialize automapper or mediator. You see, this screenshot is coming from uh, Reddit. Previously, Jimmy told that no, never. You can put it on a shirt. I will never commercialize mediator, and I will sign it with like splatter pen or something. But now he told us, I changed my mind. I regret saying never. Now that your project is very very famous, very popular, and you have a large base of users, and the feature requests are coming, bug reports are coming, and so on, so on, so on. Again, I can guarantee you, 70% of that especially those that request new features will not pay the open source project, will not sponsor. You know that there is a GitHub sponsor. I can guarantee you, those people will not pay you. They keep asking for many things, but they will not pay. When you started to commercialize, the irony is that those people then give some harsh statement like, "Oh, I will never use this anymore. I don't trust you." Blah blah blah. But the one that cannot be trusted also can be them because they should respect the original creator. Only, yeah, the statement is also wrong. Not just wrong in a sense wrong, but also it is more like can be seen as politically incorrect because you should never say this about your own project. You may need some commercial support. You may need some fee for the maintainer or the open source maintainer. There can be one or two maintainers, of course, but you need that. So let's be honest. If your project goes really well, really popular, who is also going to maintain all of them? Especially if some of the users that always submit feature requests, but can be that 10 to 15% of that feature requests are really, really legitimate or are really, really good. It is good and it also can bring more values if it is accepted and then implemented. So I think, yeah, I know that is still doable, but sometimes it is debatable. Depends on what your views are, but please pay respect to the open source maintainer, open source owner, and we all need money, but we also don't want to to be called as a yeah, you always be going commercial. No, maintain the open source project, especially the popular one, is very very can bring you some kind of situation that you can bring some burnout. You can be burnt. You can be like tormented, especially mentally, because then you will have some exhaustive condition. Okay, I'm not going to maintain this. You will have to make a some sacrifice. How are you going to tell your family, for example, oh, I have to maintain this? When they ask you, are you going to be paid for that kind of work? It's like you are doing some charity work, but then you have to know that your project is being used by large commercial entities such as organizations that you know bring profit like companies, enterprises, and so on, so on, so on. They should support this, and there is no but. To me, it is clear you should support them unless you know that there are some always totally free. Like for example, the .NET open source repo is free. There is no you have to pay. No, it's totally free. But the organization that backs up that .NET repo, that backs up this is Microsoft. Microsoft has very lots of budgeting and some very large cash disposal to maintain these wonderful platforms and open source project. So it's totally different. And This is why all of those Microsoft employees, when they answering the issues and so on, they have to, because it is part of their job. It is part of the not just their job, it's also part of the team that has the main responsibility to keep this .NET Core repos running. There is also not just Fluent Assertion and Mediator Automate, but there's also Mass Transit. Mass Transit is going commercial, but since Mass Transit is not just used on many enterprise, but also the benefits is very large. And honestly, I don't have the capability to implement my own Mass Transit. If you if you follow and if you have used Mass Transit, you'll see that the value that mass transit brings to you is very large. It's like there's no way that you can fully replace that unless you fork it. But if you fork and then you decided to maintain it, you can do that. But you still have to obey the license that is specified on mass transit. So right now maybe on the Twitter. Let me see. 9.2 release Boy G. Yeah, it's going commercial next year, and it's also the version 9 will be commercial model. So the version 8 still remains open source. You see that this is important. If you use open source, that you can also create your own. I think, yeah, you still have time. You should do it on your own. But for this project, Mass Transit, it is very useful. It is quite easy to learn. Honestly, at least based on my own experience, and also it is more popular, and it is also very easy to implement. If even if your app, if your web app or enterprise app is running on cloud, on Azure or AWS, this project is very useful. I don't have a way to explain to you, but if you want to, please put some comments on this video, and if there are more than 10 requests, I will start to create a video to demo you or to bring you some quick way to learn this mass transit. The last time I used it, has a very uh, guaranteed compatibility with .NET, even from the 6.0. So it is very good, very useful, and if I have some um, money left for me, I would like to sponsor this project, because to me it's very useful. Even if my employer may not agree with me, because I already proposed to them. Just to let you know, I'm currently freelance, but I'm also open for any kinds of software engineering, software development opportunity, especially for senior and above. If you can bring me that kind of values, I will appreciate it. If you cannot bring me, it's okay. But then I will, I will not going to, accept any complaints if you are using some kind of open source project, but you don't want to pay attention to them. You don't want to support them. If you have some employees that really care about the open source project that you use, part of your software product, appreciate them, especially if that guy or that girl wants to fix some issues, because that is a unpaid way, not in a financial way, but it is also a good way to support the open source itself. I often see that, oh, we support blah 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 blah, but they do nothing. They are not sponsoring, they are not giving money support, they are not contributing at all. They're just using it, even for very simple contribution like issue feedback or bug report. They are not doing that at all. So please don't tell me that really support them. Okay, now let's go to the ASP.NET Aspire, and okay, let's go to this one now. There is a ASP.NET Aspire 9.2 here, release party, and I will also open the documentation and let's see what's new. To me, this is a very notable release. So if you look at the what's new in Aspire 9.2 is there are many of them Apple's enhancement. So the project file change. The Aspire app host project file no longer requires the is as a file host property. This one is moved to the aspire.apphost.sdk. So this is the initial version of Aspire that has their own SDK, meaning that all of the gory detail of mechanic and the wiring of those Aspire host or node project will be done inside the SDK, and therefore it is more straightforward to use. If you follow the previous version, like for example, what's new in Aspire 9, you will see that this is also quite a big enhancement from the Aspire in .NET 8. Previously, you need to have some kind of workload installation, but since .NET Aspire 9, you just install the template directly, and that template is usually hosted on the .NET NuGet. So yeah, tooling improvement. You see, you no longer need .NET workload. Yeah, so you need to install Aspire app SDK on your app host project. Installing this is using NuGet, but this version of 9.0 is not yet having the full SDK project availability. So you just install the this template. I have done this, and then you'll have the template which will be available on your machine. So if you look here, .NET new list, you see that I have this template Aspire, and this is Aspire 9. I haven't upgraded to 9.2 honestly for this machine, but I already tried on my virtual machine. So there will be more, not just this template. By having the SDK integration into the project itself, you'll see that. Let me go back to the. Yeah, you already know that .NET itself is having its own SDK. So if I open Visual Studio, every .NET project is at least using its own SDK. So for example, if I go to this Belajar.net. By the way, you can follow my video. I know that some of the translation is not yet done. You can see some of the preview, but I will put the remaining work. It should be done on next week, hopefully. There you are. The basic console or WinForms or whatever, it is using the SDK of Microsoft.NET SDK. So for 9.2, we will have, what's the name for that? For 9.2, we will have Aspire SDK on its own. That would be this one. Oh, that's cool. So it's more like a nested. So we'll have a SDK name equals to aspire.apphost.sdk version 9.2.0. If your app host update the Aspire app host SDK NuGet package to version 9.2.0. So this is a good one. The next one is the dashboard. Yep, the icon is better. Also some telemetry, metric health warning, and you have a UTC console logs. That's cool because having UTC timestamp meaning that if your development team is distributed across different time zones and countries, at least you can agree on one thing. All of the time here is UTC time. So there should be less confusion. I encourage you to try this SP .NET Aspire 9.2, and feel free to give me some comment and feedback if you want this to be on its own series. I would love to deliver it. But if you really, really, really want to have this on series immediately, please comment this video. And if there are more than 10 that comment this video, also please don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. I'll bring a specific series of .NET Aspire starting from 9.2. And one more thing, I have tried this 9.2 is also compatible with .NET 10, although it is still in preview, but it is compatible as long as you are using at least .NET 10 Preview 3. I have some weird problems on .NET 10 Preview 2, but I decided I think I'll wait for more releases after that because it is still in preview and there is no guarantee that your app will run correctly, and it is not a production ready release because it is still in preview. If you are going to use the release candidate, that would be great. It will be production ready. For now, it's still in preview. It is not production ready yet. Okay, I've already bring you views about news and updates. And these updates will be about every 2 to 3 weeks, and it should be on Saturday, but I haven't got the chance to really publish it yet because I need to do some. I have my own work, but now it is starting to cool down, and I hope you will enjoy it. I know that this will be published on Monday, but the next installment of this will be on every Saturday, and it will be on every 2 weeks. So if you like this, as always, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please bring those comments. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe, and don't forget also to share this video. Tell everyone, your friends or your colleague or your outside office friends, especially if you are really passionate about .NET. Don't forget, coding is happiness. I'm not going to say happy coding. I'm saying coding is happiness. You know that I believe, I'm sure that I'm pretty sure that you love your work. You love your coding activities. This is why coding is happiness. Okay. See you on the next episode of this update. And also, please don't forget to follow my other videos. Especially, I know it's in Indonesia, but you can force the YouTube for now to have a very raw translation to English, and coding is happiness. Bye bye.